You can change any game from this into this. Here's how. So back in 2017, I hated Dark Souls 3. I just genuinely couldn't get into it no matter how hard I tried, and I wasn't sure why. But by 2022, something changed, and it became one of my favorite games of all time. So let's go over how this happened, how it extends far beyond just Souls-like games, and most importantly, how you can use this knowledge right now to unlock any genre you want. So stop me if you've heard this one before. Man, I'd love to get into
extremely popular video game,
but for some reason, every time I try, I bounce right off. I just don't get what people see in this game. Well, that was me with Dark Souls 3 and similar games like Nioh and even Furi. Basically, games that are designed to be extremely challenging and punishing. I wanted to enjoy these games. I had seen all the rave reviews, the threads on Reddit, the live streams and challenge runs. I heard the same lines ad nauseum. This is one of the best games of all time. It's nearly flawless. Everyone needs to play this game at least once. It was almost frustrating in a way, as it seemed like everybody in the world got it but me, and I just couldn't understand why. So, in my mixture of frustration and confusion, I decided I needed to take a break from it all and climb a mountain. Oh no, not literally, that would require going outside. I played this game about climbing a mountain. I was pretty confident that I'd enjoy Celeste, but nothing could have prepared me for how much this game would mean to me. After only a month, I was seriously questioning if this game was in my top 5 of all time. And if you've been paying attention, you might already know why that doesn't really make sense. Celeste is a hard game, and as we established earlier, I didn't like hard games. So what made Celeste so different from something like Dark Souls? Well, that's simple. Celeste wants you to win. The difficulty in Celeste increases slowly and gradually. Furthermore, the game is so forgiving that later on, when they present you with these challenges that may have looked impossible before, you're not just willing to take them on, but you're ready as well. In Celeste, when you die, you immediately respawn both quickly and not far from where you died. The rooms are designed in such a way that throughout the entire game, you'll never lose more than 30 seconds of progress, with a few exceptions. To take this all a step further, the music isn't even interrupted when you die, it just keeps playing seamlessly. Celeste, especially later on in the game, is extremely challenging, but crucially, it isn't punishing. And that's an important distinction to make because those aren't the same thing. Here's how I see it. In games, challenge is, generally speaking, how difficult it is to prevent death. Punishment, on the other hand, is what happens as a result of that death. If there was a game where to reach the goal I had to make 100 frame-perfect, pixel-perfect jumps, but after each cleared jump I was given a checkpoint, that game would be extremely challenging since avoiding failure is exceptionally difficult, but not that punishing since the punishment for failure is relatively small. So going back to Celeste, you can start to see why I said the game wants you to win. Even when you fail, the game doesn't heavily punish you for that failure. It instead tells you to get back up and try again. However, it's exactly because of this system that something strange started to happen as I played through Celeste and completed its post-game challenges and DLC. I started to enjoy the challenge. But not just enjoy it, I became addicted to it. I would go back and clear old stages I had already finished in a desperate attempt to recapture that feeling. I completed all the extra challenges the game had to offer, even started speedrunning the game, and yet it was all pointless. That feeling was gone once I finished the game's final challenge, and I would never get it back. Oh yeah, I wonder. So that's when I finally got it. It finally made sense to me why everyone loved Dark Souls so much. They were chasing that same feeling. And now that I was addicted to the struggle too, I was finally able to enjoy Dark Souls. And naturally, it didn't stop there. This idea of struggling until you eventually clear a difficult challenge certainly isn't exclusive to Souls games. This gateway game, as you could call it, was able to unlock an entirely new type of game for me by showing me a slightly altered version of that style. This altered version allowed me to appreciate the idea of challenge in games far more than I would have been able to without it. It was after coming to this realization that I knew I found something special, but I needed to find other methods. There had to be other ways to unlock a genre, and I think I found them. So there are two other ways to go about this. One that takes advantage of something from over a decade ago, and one that has nothing to do with playing video games at all. Alright, let me ask you a question. What do you need before you can play any video game? Considering games are getting more expensive by the day, money would probably be a common answer, but there are plenty of free games out there. What about a TV, or maybe a monitor? Well, while that may be true for some games, there are plenty of handheld systems like the Switch, the Steam Deck, or even just your phone. There's really only one thing you need more than anything else, and that is the will to play the game. So naturally, the next question is, where does that will come from? What makes you want to actually dedicate your time and energy to playing a video game? That's the key question we need to answer here, since within it lies something we can exploit to unlock an entire genre. There are plenty of different different ways to obtain that will to play a new game. Obviously, you can have someone recommend it to you. Maybe that's a friend, a presentation, or a YouTuber you've been thinking about subscribing to because you really enjoy his content. This is the part where or maybe it's something more visceral like the general look and feel of the game. However, if you don't have any of these, how could you gain that will to play a game? Well, that's where the second method comes in. You need a pre-established connection to the game. Let me explain. So let's say I want to play a fighting game, but I'm really bad at them, and no matter what I do, the barrier to entry is just too high, and as a result, I just don't like fighting games. Something I do like, however, is Dragon Ball Z. I, like many people my age, grew up watching it, and because of that, the characters and the setting of the show are very special to me. So if there was, I don't know, a Dragon Ball Z fighting game, we could use that connection to Dragon Ball Z to get us into that fighting game. It's only because I had that connection with Dragon Ball that I was able to get over that initial barrier to entry and really enjoy the game. And now that I'm into Dragon Ball FighterZ, I can use that knowledge and love for this game to get myself through the barrier to entry on something like Street Fighter. This method is actually even easier than the first, since all you really need is a connection to a certain type of media and a game with that media in it. But there is a problem with that. That connection isn't always going to be possible to make. If you really want to get into a certain genre of games, let's say strategy RPGs, but there are no strategy RPGs based on your favorite anime, what do? Well, that's where the silver bullet comes in. This is, to my knowledge, the best way to unlock a genre, since anyone can do it with minimal effort whenever they want. So let's go back to Dark Souls 3 for a minute, because I actually didn't tell you the full story. In 2021, after finally giving up on trying to recapture that feeling of satisfaction I gained from Celeste by replaying the game, I decided to give Dark Souls another shot. However, when I did, I found that there was still something pretty substantial in my way. If you haven't played Dark Souls, or any FromSoft game for that matter, you may not know this, but death in FromSoft games is extremely punishing. When you die, you lose all of your souls, which are basically your experience points and your currency. You have a chance to get them back by returning to the point where you died and reclaiming them, but if you die again before reaching them, you'll lose them permanently. Now, at a glance, this probably seems terribly punishing, but understanding this system was the key to finally unlocking Dark Souls for myself. The secret, just like the voices, was in my head the whole time. Here's how I used to play Dark Souls. I'd die, then run back in a desperate attempt to regain my lost souls. Naturally, I'd die again because not only am I bad at the game, but rushing back to a dangerous area with full tunnel vision isn't a very good idea. Shocking, I know. At this point, I'd curse the developers for creating such a cruel system and go back to playing Tales or something. But that's where I was actually wrong. See, souls don't matter nearly as much as you might think. Sure, they're important, but the ones you carry, the ones you can lose, those don't matter that much. The reason for this is because there are tons of permanent souls you can gain from exploring, and boss souls that you can use to easily level up at least once from just one boss. Oftentimes, these boss souls will even lead to multiple level ups too. So if you combine the boss souls with the souls that you find lying around the world, then you start to realize that the souls you collect from non-boss enemies that you defeat really aren't that significant. And when you realize how insignificant these souls are, the entire game totally changes. When you're not afraid of death, you're free to explore the world, challenge any enemy that looks at you sideways, and most importantly, really immerse yourself in this beautiful world without the constant fear of death. But this isn't exactly perfect, right? I mean, I just stumbled across this solution while playing the game. It's one thing to know that you have to change your mindset, but that's not useful information if you don't know what to change your mindset to. Luckily, it's actually pretty easy to figure it out. You need to get into the mind of two groups of people, the developers who made the game and the players who enjoy it. First, ask yourself how people who enjoy the game react to what you don't like. For example, if I don't like the slow, deliberate combat of Monster Hunter, I can watch some people play it or ask what they like about it. This can give you the insight that you need to find the best way for you to play. But second, and what I believe is notably more powerful, is getting into the head of the developer. So let's go back to Dark Souls. Ask yourself why the developers made the choices they made. Why are there these souls everywhere that don't expire when you die? Why does the game want you to explore when retrieving your souls can be so difficult if they're in a dangerous spot? Why do these bosses and their souls give you so much experience? If you think about all of these questions, the answer that the souls you gain from normal enemies don't matter becomes pretty obvious. And again, this doesn't just work for Dark Souls. You can use these methods on any game that you're struggling to get into. Games are such an interesting form of media because the content in them will actively change depending on how you interact with it. I can play through Elden Ring as a knight, but if you played through it as a mage, we had notably different experiences. I think there's something really remarkable about that fact. And while this could be detrimental, it's also because of this exact reason that with the right tools and mindset, you can unlock nearly any game from any genre you want. But if you want to see a problem that transcends genres and only occurs when games are able to reach a high enough quality, check out this video on the problem that only affects great games.